In every court, in every council, and in every corner of society, one poison spreads silently: disrespect. It is not always a dagger drawn against you, but it is a seed that, if left unchecked, grows into rebellion, betrayal, and humiliation. To tolerate it is weakness. To mishandle it is ruin. But to crush it with precision and calculation, that is the true art of power. When you are struck by disrespect, the first impulse that stirs within you is fire. You feel the sting of words or gestures, and your heart pounds with the instinct to strike back, to reclaim your dignity in the instant it is stolen. This is how most men act, like beasts. They lash out immediately, loud and reckless, believing they defend their honor, when in truth they surrender it. For the man who reacts without calculation is already defeated, not by his enemy, but by his own lack of discipline. Understand this: disrespect is never simply an insult. It is a test. When someone dares to diminish you, they are not only speaking against you, they are probing your armor, measuring your reaction, observing if your power rests on stone or sand. If you rise in anger, if you bare your teeth and roar, they learn two things: that you are easily provoked, and that your pride controls you more than you control it. Such knowledge is dangerous because it arms your enemy with the very weapon they need to undo you again and again. A prince must learn restraint. He must master silence as if it were a sword sharper than steel. When insulted, when ridiculed, when disrespected before others, do not grant the offender the pleasure of seeing your blood boil. Do not allow the room to watch you stumble into fury. Instead, wear the mask of indifference. Let your face remain calm, even amused, as though the sting could not touch your skin. In that moment, you seize the higher ground, for the offender expected a battle, and instead you gave them nothing. To fight at once would have been their victory, but to deny them the clash altogether is the beginning of your revenge. Consider how silence unsettles the human spirit. A man who insults you prepares himself for confrontation. He sharpens his tongue, braces his body, and steadies his courage. But when you offer no response, when you appear unshaken, his certainty begins to crumble. He doubts whether his words landed. He questions whether you even considered him worthy of acknowledgement. What is more painful to the proud than to be ignored? What is more destructive to the ambitious than to be unseen? Silence, when mastered, can strip your rival of power faster than 1,000 shouted curses. But do not mistake silence for surrender. You are not ignoring the insult, you are storing it. You are not forgiving the offender, you are cataloging them. Every slight, every disrespect is written into your book of accounts, and sooner or later, all accounts must be settled. The brilliance lies in the timing. A man who responds instantly announces his intent, but a man who waits, who plots, who allows the days and weeks to pass until the perfect moment appears, that man controls not only his enemy, but also the battlefield itself. Patience, therefore, is not weakness. It is a weapon. The greatest rulers of history did not punish their enemies in the hour of insult, but in the hour when their punishment carried the heaviest weight. A prince must see beyond the immediate moment. If a soldier disrespects you in public, why strike him down there and then? Let him walk free. Let him grow careless. Let him believe he has triumphed. In the shadows, you weave your answer. When the time comes, your response is not a mere retaliation. It is a collapse of his position, a quiet destruction so precise that it silences not only him, but all who might have followed his example. Understand also the role of the audience. Disrespect rarely happens in private. It seeks witnesses. Your enemy seeks to shame you before others, to plant doubt in their minds about your authority. If you respond with fury, you satisfy the crowd's hunger for spectacle, but you also reveal yourself as vulnerable. If instead you remain composed, controlled, you create a far more enduring impression. Those watching will say, "He is not moved by petty words. He is stronger than the insult," and they will wait, in anticipation, for how you will eventually strike. This waiting is your power, for it keeps the audience on your side and the offender in fear. This principle applies not only to kings and princes, but to every man who seeks power in his own domain. In the workplace, in the family, in the social circle, those who disrespect you aim to pull you into a battle of ego. Do not grant them that gift. The higher man lets others expose their weakness through noise, while he preserves his strength through stillness. It is not the loud wolf who rules the pack, but the one whose silence makes the others uneasy, whose calm signals a danger greater than any bark could deliver. Therefore, when disrespect comes, and it will, for no man of ambition escapes it, do not confront it in the heat of the moment. Temper your flame, become stone in their presence. Speak less, listen more, and let your mind record every detail. The time for retaliation will come, but it must come when it hurts most, not when it is most convenient for your pride. The fool defends his ego immediately, but the strategist defends his power eternally. In truth, the darkest way to handle disrespect begins not with action, but with inaction. It begins with your refusal to be provoked, your ability to make the offender believe that you are untouched, even as you sharpen the dagger behind your back. In silence, you prepare. In silence, you terrify. In silence, you win. Disrespect is rarely a careless act. Even when it seems spontaneous, even when it comes dressed as a joke or a passing remark, it is a calculated strike. Those who dare to insult you, whether in the open or in the shadows, believe they have found a chink in your armor. They seek not only to wound you in that moment, but to measure the strength of your response. Yet here lies their fatal mistake in striking first. They reveal their hand, they expose themselves. And this, if you are wise, is the very weapon you will use against them. To confront an enemy's insult head on is to fight on the ground they have chosen. They prepared the words, they set the scene, they wanted your reaction. To respond immediately is to walk willingly into their trap. But the true prince, the strategist, reverses this. He does not fight where his enemy expects. Instead, he transforms their act into their downfall. Their disrespect becomes the soil from which their own ruin grows. When someone disrespects you, pause. Step back in your mind and see it not as an offense, but as an opportunity. What have they revealed? Pride, arrogance, impatience, carelessness. All of these are weaknesses. If they dared to insult you before others, it is because they hungered for attention, or because they sought to elevate themselves by lowering you. Both desires are dangerous, but both can be exploited. The man who craves attention will overreach. The man who seeks status, by comparison, will overexpose his fragility. The insult they delivered is nothing more than a confession of their flaws. Now, imagine this scene: a rival mocks you in front of others. The crowd waits for your anger, for your defense, for the clash. Instead, you give them none of it. You remain calm, indifferent, almost amused. The rival feels victorious for a moment, but that victory is hollow. Because in truth, you have already begun to weave the net around him. His insult has made him visible. His arrogance has drawn a circle of attention around himself, and now every eye is on him. This is where you wait quietly, as he continues to reveal himself further and further, for the fool who disrespects once will disrespect again, and each act adds another thread to the net you will eventually tighten. The art is not to silence your enemy with force, but to let him speak so much that his own words destroy him. Let him appear bold today, only for others to see, over time, that his boldness is nothing but recklessness. Let him expose the sharpness of his tongue, until everyone begins to wonder whether he is dangerous to you or to them. When you finally act, it will not appear as your choice, but as a necessity, and the crowd will stand with you, not with him. In this way, the very act of disrespect becomes the foundation of his isolation. Machiavelli taught that men are often the authors of their own ruin. You must understand how to let them write their own downfall with the pen they thought was yours. If they speak lies about you, do not rush to defend yourself. Truth, when it is patient, gains weight. Lies, when repeated without restraint, collapse under their own exaggeration. Your silence allows their poison to spread, but remember, poison spreads fastest in the body of the one who created it. Eventually, they will be consumed by the same venom they tried to use against you. Do not forget the importance of timing. A trap is useless if sprung too early. The hunter does not strike when the prey first approaches. He waits until it has walked fully into the snare. Likewise, do not punish the offender after a single slight. Let them grow comfortable. Let them believe you weak or indifferent. Let them stack their insults one upon another. Then, when the world has seen enough, when their arrogance has swollen beyond repair, you deliver your blow. It will not seem as if you sought vengeance. It will appear as if you were forced to restore order. The crowd will not call you cruel. They will call you just. The beauty lies in the fact that the offender themselves paved the road to their own ruin. And what of those who disrespect you in private, with subtlety, with whispered remarks meant only for your ears? Here too lies opportunity. A private insult is a revelation of trust. They believe you will not, or cannot, use their words against them. Yet even whispers can be turned into daggers if placed in the right ears. If you are cunning, you do not confront them directly. Instead, you let others discover their insolence. You let their own words crawl into the public light, not by your hand, but by their own indiscretion. Men who whisper disrespect are often careless enough to whisper again, and sooner or later, those whispers reach the wrong ear. By the time they realize it, the damage is irreversible, and once again, they stand defeated by their own tongue. The lesson is simple: never waste the gift an enemy gives you. Disrespect is not merely an attack. It is information, it is confession, it is opportunity. Every slight reveals character. Every insult reveals weakness. Every mockery reveals insecurity. Your task is not to react, but to collect. Let the offender believe they scored a victory, while in truth, they merely tied another knot in the rope that will hang them. To turn their act into their trap is to master the darkest art of retaliation, where you never strike in haste, but always in inevitability. Power is not maintained by scattering blows wildly, nor is it secured by lashing out at every provocation. The man who responds to disrespect by striking wherever he can reach reveals himself as impulsive, wasteful, and weak. But the man who waits, who observes, who searches for the one wound that cripples his enemy, that man rules the game. For the darkest way to handle disrespect is not simply to answer it, but to answer it in the place where it causes the deepest fracture. Disrespect is often loud, but its roots are hidden. An insult, a mockery, a public slight. These are the surface gestures of a deeper foundation. Behind them lies the offender's true source of strength. It may be their reputation, their allies, their wealth, their influence, or their standing with the crowd. To strike back in the place they are strongest may seem tempting, but it is foolish. You do not meet a lion head-on. Instead, you find the weakness in its paw, the wound in its side, and you drive your dagger there. Imagine a rival mocks you before others, seeking to stain your image. To humiliate him publicly in return may satisfy your pride, but pride is cheap. What if instead, you quietly work to separate him from his closest supporters, poisoning his relationships with whispers and subtle manipulations? One day he awakens and discovers that those who once laughed at his insults now doubt him, mistrust him, no longer rally to his side. This is not mere retaliation, it is strategic dismantling. By the time he notices the shift, the ground beneath his feet is already gone. This is the essence of Machiavellian punishment. Never fight the insult, fight the foundation. You strike not where the offender has attacked you, but where their power rests most delicately. Perhaps they thrive on reputation, appearing strong, noble, untouchable. Then you must orchestrate their ruin not through a loud rebuttal, but by engineering situations where their flaws are exposed, where their mask slips, where their contradictions are revealed to those who once respected them. Nothing destroys a man faster than the collapse of his carefully built image. Or consider another type of enemy, the one who thrives not on reputation but on alliances, a man whose strength comes from the circle of allies who protect him. To attack him directly is to face many, but to isolate him is to face none. You plant seeds of distrust among his circle, exploit their ambitions, tempt them with opportunities, make them suspicious of his leadership. Soon, his allies become rivals, his protectors become predators, and his fortress collapses without you ever needing to breach the gate. This is how you strike where it hurts most, not with force, but with precision. You must also understand the psychology of punishment. If you answer disrespect with equal disrespect, you play a childish game of mirror and echo. But if you answer it in a way that touches the offender's most vulnerable spot, you create fear. They learn that you do not waste your arrows, that every arrow you release strikes at the heart. This is how you transform yourself into someone others hesitate to cross, because they know that the price of insulting you is never small, never obvious, and always ruinous. Consider the way rulers of old punished traitors. They did not simply kill the man, they stripped him of his titles, confiscated his lands, erased his lineage, and made his family beg for survival. It was not the blade that killed. It was the erasure of everything he valued. The insult of betrayal was answered not by meeting words with words, but by tearing apart the very pillars that gave him standing. This principle remains true even outside the throne room. If someone disrespects you because of envy, target their pride. If they mock you to seem superior, arrange for them to be humiliated in front of those they admire. If they thrive by controlling others, undermine their influence until they are left alone, exposed as hollow. Patience is vital here. You cannot know where to strike unless you study your enemy carefully. Watch how they move, listen to how they speak, observe where their energy flows. A man reveals his weaknesses in the things he protects most fiercely. The one who boasts of his wealth fears poverty. The one who brags of his influence fears obscurity. The one who constantly seeks validation fears being invisible. Once you identify the true source of their strength, you do not rush. You wait for the perfect moment when they least expect the attack. Then you strike, and your strike is final. And remember, when you strike, you must strike deeply enough that recovery becomes impossible. To wound an enemy superficially only invites retaliation. To strike where it hurts most is to ensure that the wound cripples them permanently. They may breathe, they may walk, but their influence, their pride, their authority is shattered beyond repair. Others who watch will see not only that you punished the insult, but that you dismantled the offender completely, leaving no doubt about the cost of crossing you. This is not cruelty. It is necessity. For if disrespect goes unchecked, it spreads like disease. But if it is answered with ruthless precision, with a blow to the very core of the offender's power, it becomes a lesson to all. Those who watch will learn the man who strikes where it hurts most is not to be tested lightly. Most men, when they are disrespected, dream of humiliation. They imagine bringing their rival to their knees before a crowd, stripping away his pride, making him suffer in the eyes of others. But humiliation is a fool's revenge. It satisfies for a moment, but it creates enemies for a lifetime. For humiliation burns pride, and pride, once scorched, never forgets. The humiliated man does not forgive, nor does he move on. He waits, he plans, and he seeks the chance to repay his shame with blood. This is why humiliation is dangerous. It creates an enemy who has nothing left to lose. When a man has been stripped of his dignity in public, when others laugh at his downfall, he becomes desperate, reckless, willing to do anything to reclaim even a fraction of the respect he lost. You may win the battle of the moment, but you plant the seed of a future war. The man who is humiliated may disappear from sight for a time, but like a shadow, he lingers, always waiting to strike when you least expect it. A true strategist, a true prince, does not humiliate. He erases. To erase an enemy is to leave no possibility of return, no hope of revenge, no path back to power. When you erase, you do not merely cut down the man. You cut down his roots, his reputation, his alliances, his influence, his very name. A humiliated man still lives in memory, still speaks, still breathes. An erased man is forgotten, his voice silenced, his memory dissolved into nothingness. Look at history. When rulers punished traitors by humiliation, parading them through the streets in chains, they sometimes gained temporary applause from the crowd. But often, those same traitors returned through rebellion, vengeance, or the support of sympathizers who pitied their humiliation. But when rulers erased, when they not only destroyed the traitor but wiped away his legacy, the silence that followed was complete. There was no rebellion, no sympathy, no resurrection. The people learned not to pity, but to fear. To erase an enemy is not always to kill them, though death is sometimes the most final form of erasure. Erasure means to strip them of their ability to stand against you again. If they build their power on wealth, you drain it from them. If their strength lies in alliances, you scatter those alliances until no one dares to be seen at their side. If their pride rests in reputation, you shatter it so thoroughly that even speaking their name becomes a mark of shame. The goal is not to punish their body, but to dismantle the entire structure of their existence. And erasure, unlike humiliation, is clean. It leaves no spectacle, no dramatic performance for the crowd. It happens quietly, systematically, without announcement. By the time the man realizes he is being erased, it is already too late. His influence has slipped. His supporters have turned away. His pride has been hollowed from the inside. He looks around and finds that no one listens, no one follows, no one remembers. What greater punishment exists than to become invisible, to still breathe, but to have no power, no name, no place? This is erasure, the punishment that does not inflame rebellion, but suffocates it before it can begin. Consider the psychology of those who might watch. When you humiliate, others may cheer in the moment, but secretly they will think, if I cross him, will I be dragged in front of the crowd as well? Fear mixed with hatred brews rebellion. But when you erase, there is no drama, no spectacle, no public humiliation to stir anger. Instead, people observe silently as a man simply vanishes from relevance. They see that one day he stood tall, and the next, he was gone, forgotten, removed. They are left not with anger, but with awe. They think, he does not punish like a child. He eliminates like a master. And make no mistake, this requires patience. Humiliation is quick and emotional. Erasure is slow, deliberate, and calculated. You must resist the urge to strike loudly. Instead, strike in silence, pulling away one thread at a time until the entire fabric of your enemy unravels. Perhaps you undermine his reputation with quiet rumors that grow over months. Perhaps you tempt his allies into betrayal until he stands alone. Perhaps you deny him opportunities until he withers in irrelevance. Then, when the world already sees him as nothing, you deliver the final blow. The beauty of erasure is that it is permanent. The humiliated man may rise again, but the erased man has no soil from which to grow. He is a ruin, not a wounded enemy. He is a memory that dies faster with every passing day. And while humiliation feeds the flames of vengeance, erasure extinguishes it, leaving nothing but silence in its place. This is why the darkest way to handle disrespect is not to humiliate, it is to erase. To ensure that the man who dared to offend you no longer exists in the realm of influence, no longer has a voice to challenge you, no longer has the ground to stand upon. Humiliation entertains, but erasure endures. Power is never only about action. It is about perception. To be feared is necessary, but to be hated is dangerous. A ruler, a leader, a man of ambition must always walk the thin line between ruthlessness and appearance. For the truth of your hand can be iron, but the face you show must be velvet. This is why the wisest way to handle disrespect is not only to punish with ruthlessness, but to do so while wearing the mask of mercy. Men are not guided by truth. They are guided by appearances, by what they see and believe in the moment. You may act with cruelty, but if it looks like justice, they will call it righteous. You may destroy a rival entirely, but if you cloak it as forgiveness, they will praise your generosity. Power lies not in what you do, but in what others think you are doing. Consider this: a rival insults you in public. The crowd expects vengeance. They hunger for your retaliation. They want spectacle. If you answer with immediate fury, you give them what they expect, but you also reveal your cruelty openly. Some may cheer, but others will whisper, "He is dangerous, he is merciless, he cannot be trusted." Their loyalty will weaken, for men are fickle. They fear cruelty when it is visible. But if instead you smile, if you dismiss the insult as beneath you, if you let the world believe you forgave, you appear merciful. Yet behind the curtain, you quietly prepare his ruin. Months later, when he collapses under the weight of misfortune, no one will blame you. They will call it fate. This is the brilliance of appearing merciful while being ruthless. The punishment does not vanish. It is only delayed, concealed, and executed in shadows. The offender falls, but you rise, for the world sees you as generous, composed, and above petty conflict. You become both feared and admired, and this duality is the highest armor of power. History is full of rulers who fell because they were openly cruel. Their punishments, though effective, stained their reputations and united enemies against them. Yet those who mastered the art of appearances endured. They punished just as harshly, sometimes harsher, but because they cloaked their ruthlessness in mercy, they escaped hatred. A man may fear your power, but if he also believes you capable of mercy, he will hesitate to turn against you. This principle can be practiced in countless ways. Perhaps you pretend to forgive a rival after an insult, allowing him to believe he has escaped your wrath. He grows careless, believing himself untouchable. Then, at the right moment, you orchestrate his downfall, not with your name attached, but through accidents, coincidences, the hands of others. To the world, it appears you spared him. To him, it is clear you destroyed him. The appearance protects your reputation, the reality secures your dominance. Or imagine a servant, an ally, even a friend who disrespects you subtly. If you punish him openly, others will fear your wrath but also question your loyalty. If instead you forgive him publicly, you gain admiration. But in silence, you strip him of influence, take away his opportunities, and gradually push him into irrelevance. The people say, "He is merciful, he is patient." The servant says nothing, for he cannot even prove your hand destroyed him. You lose no respect, but you gain absolute control. The genius of this method is psychological. Disrespect must be punished, but the offender does not need to know when or how it will come. By disguising your ruthlessness under a veil of mercy, you place your enemy in confusion. He cannot predict you, he cannot defend himself, he cannot rally others to his side, because to the eyes of the world, you did nothing but forgive. He feels the ground collapsing beneath him, but he cannot shout for help without exposing his own weakness. He dies slowly, not only by your hand but by his own doubt and isolation. The mask of mercy also strengthens your hold over others. People prefer leaders who appear just, compassionate, and above petty cruelty. Even if they secretly fear you, they will speak well of you because they believe in the image you project. They will say, "He spares those who wrong him. He is measured. He is wise." Meanwhile, your enemies whisper in the dark, knowing the truth. That mercy is only your mask, and beneath it lies steel. This duality keeps you untouchable, because no one can accuse you openly without appearing foolish. This art requires discipline. The urge to expose your punishment, to make your ruthlessness known, is strong, but the greater power lies in restraint. The more merciful you appear, the more room you have to be ruthless without detection. Let others think you are forgiving, generous, incapable of cruelty. It is only when they truly believe this that your punishments become most effective, for they arrive not as retaliation, but as fate itself. A man destroyed by open cruelty becomes a martyr, a rallying point for sympathy. A man destroyed under the shadow of mercy becomes forgotten, pitied by none, erased without resistance. The crowd remembers your image, not your action. And in politics, in power, in life itself, it is the image that rules. When a man disrespects you and you decide to answer, you do not merely settle a private quarrel. You perform an act that will echo through the halls where power is decided. Punishment is never solely for the offender. It is for the audience. Those who watch will learn what is permitted and what is fatal. If you punish softly, you teach indulgence. If you punish wildly, you teach fear without respect. If you punish with precision and inevitability, you teach order. The fall of one must become the lesson of many. Consider this: people do not learn from abstract rules. They learn from stories told at the fireside, from whispers in the market, from the visible consequences that befall those who overstep. When you allow the fall of your offender to be seen, analyzed, and remembered, you create a living parable. It is not enough that he suffers. The manner of his suffering must be instructive. It must show others the cost of disrespect and the logic by which power is defended. This is how you transform an act of retaliation into a mechanism of control. But make no mistake, this is not spectacle. The spectacle gratifies the moment but does not discipline the mind. To make the fall a lesson requires a balance of visibility and subtlety. The world must understand what happened and why, yet the punishment must not inflame pity or breed martyrs. The lesson should be clear, surgical, and rooted in consequences that resonate with the values and fears of those who watch. If people value reputation, destroy reputation. If people value alliances, sever his alliances publicly enough that others see the pattern. The point is to craft a punishment that speaks the language of your society. Observe how power endures. It does so not because rulers crush every insult with brute force, but because they create examples that instruct. Men learn through consequence. When a merchant sees a rival's trade ruined after a brazen insult, he thinks twice about speaking ill. When a noble watches an upstart stripped of influence after mocking his lord, he remembers his place. The lesson spreads more effectively through social calculation than through sermons or laws. People always measure risk against reward. Your task is to make the risk of disrespect exceed its reward. The lesson must also be unmistakable in its fairness. People tolerate harshness when they perceive justice. If a punishment appears arbitrary, it breeds resentment and secret plots. If it appears proportionate and inevitable, it strengthens your position. Therefore, when you make an example of a man, ensure the world understands the cause and the effect chain. Let the facts be visible, the insult, the context, the repeated transgressions that led to the consequence. Let the spectators conclude, on their own, that the punishment was warranted. This creates reluctant agreement, which is more durable than forced applause. There is also utility in variety. Not every fall should look the same. Sometimes the lesson is social ruin, sometimes it is economic collapse, sometimes it is the quiet removal from power. Variety prevents predictability. If your punishments always come as public executions, people will learn to fear spectacle, but may still test you in subtler ways. If your punishments always arrive as erasure, some may attempt to hide their contempt and survive. Switch methods, so the lesson adapts to the nature of the threat. An ambitious one is best taught by losing status. A schemer is best taught by losing allies. A braggart is best taught by having his lies revealed. Each fall becomes a case study in the consequences of insolence. Use intermediaries to spread the lesson without staining your hands unnecessarily. Let gossip, rumor, and quiet conversations do the heavy lifting of teaching. The rumor that a man lost everything after belittling you will travel farther and be believed more readily if it seems to arise organically. When the populace tells the story, it becomes their lesson, not your decree. They internalize it and begin policing behavior themselves, sparing you the cost of constant enforcement. You become less a tyrant and more a law, the one whose presence alone maintains order. Remember the role of memory. Lessons that are forgotten are lessons wasted. Make the fall memorable by connecting it to symbols your people know. Titles lost, houses abandoned, a name crossed from the honor rolls. Create simple narratives that are easy to repeat. He insulted his lord and lost his house. He mocked his colleague and then found no friend to stand with him. Human memory is story, shaped. Craft your lessons as stories that conform to the moral of your rule. The easier they are to tell, the more effective they will be in shaping future behavior. Yet be cautious of cruelty disguised as deterrence. Too much cruelty teaches cunning rather than obedience. Men become cleverer at hiding their contempt. Your ideal lesson should not only frighten, but also convince that respect is wisdom because it preserves opportunities. That deference is a prudent strategy for self-preservation. When the fall instructs people to act in their interest by respecting you, you have achieved the highest form of control, voluntary compliance. They obey not only because they fear you, but because they calculate that obedience serves them best. Finally, let your examples be consistent with the image you have cultivated. If you present yourself as a just leader, let the lessons read as justice. If you present yourself as a ruthless force, let the lessons underscore inevitability. People will map your punishments to your persona. Consistency builds credibility. Credibility makes the lessons persuasive. When the lesson aligns with your image, it becomes part of the fabric of rule, an instruction woven into daily life rather than an episodic act of revenge. Make the fall a lesson, and you convert a single act of disrespect into an instrument of governance and survival. The man who dared to insult you becomes more than a victim. He becomes a teacher for the many who learn to keep their tongues and guard their place, because the cost of miscalculation has been demonstrated before them in unmistakable terms. Disrespect is never a small wound. It is a signal, a test, a spark that, if ignored, can set fire to everything you have built. To handle it with softness is to invite more of it. To answer it blindly is to lose control. But to treat it as strategy, to crush it with silence, calculation, and inevitability, this is the dark art of power. Each response must not only silence the offender, but instruct the audience, shaping a world where your authority is unquestioned. Power is not preserved by chance. It is preserved by vigilance, by decisive action, and by the unshakable will to ensure that no slight goes unanswered. Disrespect must be transformed into opportunity, the opportunity to demonstrate strength, to instill fear, and to secure obedience without ever appearing desperate. In this lies the Machiavellian truth. Control is not about reaction, it is about design. So remember this: when you face disrespect, you are not settling a personal quarrel. You are defending your throne, whether that throne is a kingdom, a business, or your very presence in the world. And in the darkest way, you must ensure that disrespect never dares to rise again.